Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web novel Humans Don't Make Good Familiars, taken from Reddit. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Part 68. Suma's point of view. What were you thinking? The instructor yelled. You used a tactical scale magic in a training session, while on a training field. We were being chastised for Jake's attack spell. I think he called it Railgun. You annihilated a training dummy. I don't even know how that was possible. It was made of metal. Sir, I apologize. I didn't realize, Jake started to say, but the instructor didn't let him finish. Enough, Cadet Suma. He is your familiar, so this is your responsibility, he declared. I said as he landed on a perch next to the instructor. He was shorter than the instructor and darker in color, but obviously he outranked the instructor. Members of the King's Armed Forces, once they had graduated from basic training anyway, all wear gold symbols on their chests to display their status. For a private just out of training, the symbol is a single golden line worn horizontally. For the next two ranks, an extra line is added above the first. This Niema was a major, which I knew because he wore 3 triangles on each chest, where the instructor only had a single circle. Major, the instructor said and stood straight up in his perch, his feathers slightly raised from surprise. Sir, I apologize for my inability to properly control and discipline my cadets, he said. No need for that, Sergeant. At least, not yet, the major said and turned to face Jake and I. So, which one of you was it that cast the tactical magic? I thought I heard that the familiar was the caster, but I could have been mistaken. Or at least, that's what my common sense wants me to believe. It was me, sir, said Jake. He was stood stock still and even straighter than the drill instructor. His arms were behind his back, and one of his hands was wrapped tightly around the other arm's wrist. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize my spell would be so powerful, Jake explained. I admit, when I first noticed Jake's spell, I was convinced it wasn't going to be enough, or at least nothing special. It used so little mana, after all. I still don't understand how the spell was so weak could have produced such an effect. What is your name, if you possess one? The major asked. Strangely, he seemed unfazed by Jake's ability to speak. So far, most Niema we have encountered have been caught off guard by it. Having a familiar with the ability to speak is almost unheard of, outside of children's stories anyway. So the major's ability to take it in stride was fairly impressive. That's a complicated answer, sir, I told the major. Simplify it, he said plainly. Jake, this is a major, I said to Jake over our private connection. We should use your familiar name. That's the proper protocol, he agreed. My name is Sentinel, Jake told the major. Well, Sentinel, who was it that taught you tactical magic? The major wondered. Actually, this was something I hadn't thought of. I just accepted it on account of how powerful Jake is. But who did teach him that spell? It certainly wasn't me. Only the highest level of mages are even allowed to attempt to learn it. I created the spell myself, sir, but it was based off knowledge from my world, Jake explained. I'd figured that would be the case, that it was something from his world. But I didn't expect him to be able to actually develop the spell alone. Most tactical magic requires teams of Niema from all walks of life working in tandem for months or years to create a new tactical spell. You and who else? The major asked, obviously not believing Jake did it alone. No one, sir. I did it alone, Jake told him. The major seemed irritated, whether by Jake's answer or by the thought that a single person could create tactical magic all by himself. I couldn't tell. Do you expect me to believe that a single familiar was able to develop, test, and successfully utilize tactical magic all by himself? The major asked in a quite serious tone, his feathers pressed closely to his body. It's the truth, sir, Jake responded. There were a few long moments of quiet while the major stared at Jake. Sentinel, follow me. He turned to the instructor. "Sergeant, continue your class. Now, I assume you are this familiar's master?" he asked me. "Yes, sir," I said. "Please follow me as well." The Major then spread his wings and took flight. I followed him, and Jake walked after us quickly. We landed beside a large drake who had a narrow saddle on its back between its wings. We were perched on a few molded vines, and when Jake arrived, he opted to sit on the grass. I don't know how he was comfortable like that, though. His limbs were twisted and interlocked, or crisscross applesauce, as he once called it. "Sentinel, how would you feel about joining the Wyvern Brigade?" the Major asked. End of chapter. Chapter 69. Jake's Point of View. I sat on my bed at night, thinking about my earlier conversation with the Major. He said, "You and Madame Suma would be excellent candidates for our program. You have unparalleled magical prowess, the ability to cast tactical-grade magic without anyone assisting you. And you, Madame Suma, you're an excellent healing mage. We're always on the lookout for those, especially ones with names." "I'm sorry, sir. Who exactly are the Wyverns?" I asked. "I've only heard of rumors myself. I didn't believe they actually existed." Suma said in awe at the realization. "What rumors have you heard, Miss Suma?" the Major asked, interested. It might have been his first opportunity to get an outsider perspective on his team, or maybe he just liked hearing what people thought of them. "That they are some kind of special team of mages, each with powerful and unique familiars. They go on the kinds of missions most people don't survive. I've heard their power and effectiveness, not to mention their magical strength, is likened to the descendants of the dragons," Suma told us. "A well-earned reputation, I assure you," the Major said pridefully. "And I want you two to try out for the team." That conversation was nearly 4 hours ago, and still bouncing around in my head. He explained to us that there would be a kind of tryout, held in 12 days. Any member of the army, new recruit or otherwise, was allowed to try out. But if we did succeed, we would still need to pass boot camp to actually be accepted. Suma and I talked about it, and told the Major that we would have an answer for him in 2 days. We both needed time to think about the offer. My train of thought was interrupted by the ringing of my phone. My mum has started calling me every night now that I'm spending more time on Earth. "Hello," I answered. "Hi, Jake. I just wanted to call and make sure that you were okay. You didn't answer your phone last night, and I got worried." Mum said, sounding relieved that I'd picked up. "I'm fine, Mum. Couldn't leave Suma's world last night because they got themselves into a pickle. I needed someone to help them out. I ended up camping on a mountain because of it last night." I explained the whole series of events to her, only leaving out the part where I got bitten by a giant ant reptile thing and paralyzed. "Well, I'm just happy the cave didn't collapse on you or something. They really should have thought their plan through better than that. I thought you said that they were trained professionals, Jake," she complained. "Well, trained for healing, not cave exploration," I said, "but they did okay for the first time." Suma's point of view. I laid in my nest, under the army-issued tarp that blocked out some of the light from the stupidly bright magical laces running through the floors and ceiling of the underground sleeping area. The conversation Jake and I had with Major wouldn't leave my thoughts. He wanted us, or more realistically, Jake, as a part of the Wyvern's team. I'm no fool. I know I was only offered this because Jake is my familiar, and they can't only offer it to him. But that didn't mean that it wasn't going to affect me. I would have to go on missions with Jake, as I am the only one capable of summoning him. So that means I would end up going on quite dangerous missions to places where I could be killed without even knowing what was happening. I signed up to be a healing mage. I expected to be put into dangerous places, doing dangerous things, but I never once considered that I would end up on the front lines. The thought was frightening, but another part of me said something different. A small part of me wanted to go, wanted to be a part of something bigger, wanted to do something that would make a difference in this war. I fell asleep thinking about my feelings and about how my life would change if I acted on those feelings. Lbry Hezbollah's point of view. After the Major flew away from the training area, and the one called Suma and a Viking, the rest of the cadets finished one by one their combat maneuvers. We were dismissed for a short time so that we could eat, and during my lunch break, the Major approached me and made me an offer. He wanted me to join his team. Or rather, he wanted me to audition for it. He called them the Wyverns. I had heard of the team before. My father mentioned them on several occasions while in business dealings with other nobles. I had always made it a point to attend those meetings so as to further my understanding of the country and its laws. I accepted the Major's offer without a second thought. I joined the army in order to serve. This was just a better way of doing so. I had 12 days to prepare myself and my familiar for the tryout. Of course, this raised an issue. When he pulled Suma and the Viking aside, he most likely offered them a chance to audition as well. And why wouldn't he? Even I must admit, I did not expect to see tactical level magic to be utilized during a training mission, and by a single familiar, no less. A troublesome duo, I mumbled as I grew my lunch. Jake's point of view. It was time. Suma and I had discussed it before today. I sat in the therapist's office building, waiting to be called back for my appointment. I had let her know that I was bringing Suma to see her, but obviously that was a small lie. Suma was still having issues with what happened that day in the alley, and I figured that the stress from our upcoming decision might be a lot for her to handle. So I talked to her, and she agreed. We would be summoning the doctor to see her. "Jake, the doctor is ready for you," the receptionist announced. End of chapter. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I would just quickly like to give thanks to our Tier 5 members: Elithia, Barky, Feudicuel, Meridian117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albarden Gusta, Savage Patch Papa, and Lord Azrakal.